I was halfway through Concourse B when I checked my phone again. 5:04. That meant maybe 40 minutes before the evening rush turned I-70 into a parking lot. My crew could get out clean if I closed the last 3 work orders without finding anything that needed actual fixing. That was the game most nights. Walk fast, look close enough, tick the boxes, get everyone home. The concourse smelled like recycled air and those cinnamon pretzels from the kiosk near gate B32. I'd stopped noticing it years ago, but sometimes when I came back from a day off, it hit me fresh. Tonight, it was just background. My boots made that specific rubber-on-tile squeak facilities people recognize everywhere. The sound means someone's working. I had my tablet in one hand and my flashlight in the other, even though the overhead LEDs were all functioning. Old habit. Half the service corridors in this place had lighting that cut out if you sneezed wrong, and I'd learned to carry backup for everything. Gate B28 was my next stop. The check was simple. Inspect the jet bridge actuator housing for hydraulic leaks, verify the environmental controls, make sure the gate podium had power. I scanned the area. A couple of passengers sat near the windows, one with headphones on and a laptop open, the other asleep against a roller bag. Nobody paid attention to me. I knelt next to the actuator panel and popped it open. Everything looked fine. No fluid pooling, no burnt smell from the motor, no error codes on the little diagnostic screen. I took a photo with the tablet anyway because documentation mattered when someone higher up decided something had broken and wanted to know why we hadn't caught it. Closed the panel. Marked the work order complete. Checked my phone. 5:07. I kept moving. The thing about an airport is it's never actually quiet, but it has rhythms. Right now, we were in the lull between the late afternoon departures and the dinner hour shuffle. Fewer people at the gates, fewer bags getting dragged across the floor. The PA system announced a delayed flight to Phoenix, my dad's name, not the city, though he'd never been there as far as I knew. And I let it wash past me like I let most of the announcements wash past me. I spotted Gabriella near gate B35, crouched in front of an electrical panel with her toolkit open on the floor beside her. She had her hair pulled back tight, the way she always did when she was working anything that might spark. I angled toward her. Anything? She didn't look up. Breaker kept tripping, replaced it. Old one looked burnt? A little. She twisted a screwdriver one more time, then pulled it free and stood, brushing her knees off. Probably someone plugged in a bad charger at the gate podium and fried it. Happens. I nodded. Gabriella knew electrical better than I did. If she said it was handled, it was handled. You're done? I asked. For today, yeah. Unless you've got something else. Not unless something breaks in the next half hour. She gave me a look. Don't say that. I smiled a little. Go ahead and clock out. I'll finish the sweep. You sure? Yeah, beat the traffic. She didn't argue. Gabriella was good at her job and she didn't waste time when someone gave her an out. She packed her toolkit, slung it over one shoulder, and headed toward the service elevator without looking back. I watched her go, then turned and kept walking. Randall passed me about 30 seconds later, pushing his custodial cart toward the restrooms near gate B40. He had his headphones in, which technically wasn't allowed, but which I didn't enforce unless someone from management was around. He saw me and pulled one earbud out. Trash run, he said. You're doing the full rotation? Yeah, might as well finish it. Randall worked hard, too hard sometimes. I told him more than once that he didn't need to stay late just because the restrooms could use another pass. But he had a wife and 2 kids, and he wanted the hours. I got it. Don't miss your bus, I said. I won't. He put the earbud back in and kept going, the cartwheels squeaking a little where one of them had picked up something sticky. I made a mental note to check the wheel assembly next week if he didn't clean it off first. Then I turned back to my tablet and pulled up the last 2 work orders. Gate B45. Check passenger boarding bridge alignment. Gate B50. Verify fire suppression system pressure. Both easy. I could knock them out in 15 minutes if nothing was broken. I just started toward B45 when I heard boots behind me, heavier than Randall's. I turned. Freddie Herman, airport police detail. We'd gone to high school together, back when I thought I'd end up doing something else with my life. He was in uniform, vest and belt and radio earpiece, looking like he'd been walking the concourse for a while. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you guys still working down here?" "Last couple of checks," I said. "What's up?" He glanced toward the west end of the concourse, where the stairwell access led down to the train platform. "Can you boost the lighting in that stairwell? It's dim as hell, and we've had a couple of complaints." I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. West stairwell, Concourse B. "Yeah. I'll add it to the list. Might not get to it tonight. That's fine, just wanted to flag it." I typed it in, then looked up. Freddie was scanning the concourse the way cops do, eyes moving from gate to gate, checking for anything that didn't fit. Old habit for him, probably. Same way I checked actuator panels without thinking about it. "Slow night?" I asked. "Slow enough," he shrugged. "Better than busy." I nodded. Busy for Freddie usually meant someone drunk or someone who missed a flight and decided to make it everyone else's problem. I didn't envy him that part of the job. We stood there for a second. The PA system announced pre-boarding for a flight to Salt Lake City. A kid ran past us toward one of the gates, and his mom called after him to slow down. Normal airport stuff. Freddie's radio crackled. He tilted his head a little, listening, then nodded to himself. "All right, I'm gonna keep moving, thanks." "Yeah." He walked off toward the central security checkpoint, one hand resting on his belt near his radio. I watched him go, then turned back toward gate B45. The passenger flow looked normal. A few people getting up to board, a few more sitting and waiting, one guy arguing with a gate agent about a seat assignment. I walked past them and headed for the jet bridge door. Swiped my access card. The lock clicked open. Inside the jet bridge, it was quieter. No PA system, no passengers. Just the hum of the environmental controls and the faint smell of jet fuel that seeped in through the seals. I checked the alignment mechanism. Everything was fine. Took another photo. Marked the work order complete. One more to go. I came back out into the concourse and checked my phone. 5:17. Good. I'd be done by 5:30. Maybe 5:35 if the fire suppression check took longer than expected. I could swing by the office, drop off the tablet, clock out, and still make it to my car before the worst of the rush hit. I started toward gate B50. That's when the tone hit. Not the fire alarm. I knew the fire alarm. This was different, sharper, more urgent. The kind of sound that makes your gut tighten before your brain catches up. It blared through every speaker in the concourse, loud enough that I stopped walking and half the passengers looked up at the ceiling like the noise was coming from somewhere they could see. Then the voice. "Attention all passengers and personnel. Do not exit the terminal. Stay inside and away from all exterior doors. Repeat. Do not exit the terminal. Stay inside and away from all exterior doors." It repeated. Same tone, same words. I stood there for a second, trying to figure out what that meant. Not a fire. Not a security breach. Those had different scripts. This was something else. My radio crackled. I pulled it off my belt and turned up the volume. "All ramp personnel, cease operations. Seal jet bridges. Halt all ground traffic. Repeat, seal jet bridges and halt all ground traffic." The voice was clipped. Professional. The kind of calm that meant someone in operations was working hard not to sound rattled. I looked around. A few of the gate agents had picked up their desk phones. One of them was talking fast, nodding, writing something down. Passengers were starting to stand up, looking confused. A couple of them walking toward the windows. I walked toward the windows too. Concourse B faced south, out over the ramp and the runways and the flat stretch of nothing that surrounded the airport. Normally you could see for miles. Planes taxiing, ground crews moving equipment, the horizon line where the planes met the sky. Not now. Now there was fog. Thick, yellow, wrong. It sat low across the tarmac, maybe 10 feet high, rolling in from the south like something poured instead of something that formed. I watched it swallow a baggage tug, then a fuel truck, then the nose of a plane parked at the next gate over. It didn't move like fog was supposed to move. It moved like it had weight. I pressed my hand against the window. The glass was cold. Behind me, someone said, "What the hell is that?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. I stayed near the employee door, the one we'd all been told to stay away from. Freddie was still there too, radio pressed to his ear, hand up telling people to back off. A couple of ramp workers stood behind him looking confused and pissed off. Randall came from the other direction fast. His cart was gone. He had his phone in one hand and his keys in the other. "My car's in the open lot," he said. Not to anyone in particular, just saying it. "I need to get my car." I stepped in front of him. "Randall, stop." He didn't stop. He moved left to go around me. "It's right there," he said. "I can see it just past the fence." I blocked him again. "You heard the announcement. Nobody goes outside." I heard it. His voice was tight. "My car is out there. I'm not leaving it." Freddie turned from the door. "Sir, you need to step back." Randall ignored him. He was looking at the door. The yellow fog pressed against the glass on the other side, thick enough that I couldn't see more than a few feet past the threshold. It moved wrong, not drifting, crawling. "I'll be fast," Randall said. 30 seconds. I know where it is." "No," Freddie said. Randall moved again. This time he went right, trying to slip past both of us. I grabbed his shoulder and he shrugged me off hard enough that I stepped back. "Don't touch me," he said. His hands were shaking. The keys rattled. Freddie moved in front of the door. "You're not going out there." "It's my car," Randall said again, louder. "You don't get it. I need my car. My wife needs the car. I can't just leave it." "You can leave it," I said. "It's just a car." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. His face was tight and his eyes were wet, and I realized he wasn't just worried about the car. He was terrified, not of the fog, of going home without it, of explaining to his wife why he left it in an open lot during whatever this was. "I'll be right back," he said. He lunged for the door. Freddie caught his arm before he got to the crash bar. Freddie's grip was solid, the kind cops use when they mean it. "People are already getting sick out there," Freddie said, low and steady. "We've had 3 calls. Respiratory distress, burns. You go out there. You're not coming back." Randall yanked his arm. Freddie didn't let go. "Let me go," Randall said. "No!" Randall yanked again, harder. His keys fell and hit the floor with a metallic clatter that echoed in the hallway. Freddie's grip slipped and Randall twisted free and shoved the crash bar with both hands. The door opened. Yellow fog rolled in. Not fast, just steady. It moved along the floor in a thick layer that looked heavier than air. I smelled it immediately. Chemical. Bitter. Something that made the back of my throat itch. Randall stepped through. The door swung shut behind him on its hydraulic closer. Slow. Too slow. Freddie grabbed the edge and pulled it the rest of the way, and it sealed with a hard click. I moved to the window, pressed my face close to the glass. Randall was already just a shape, a blur in the yellow. He was moving away from the building, toward the fence line where the employee lot started. I could see his outline, his arms pumping, his head down. Then I couldn't see him anymore. "Idiot!" one of the ramp workers said behind me. Freddie didn't say anything. He stood with his back to the door, radio in hand, breathing hard. I kept watching. I don't know why. There was nothing to see, just fog, just yellow pressing against the glass and moving in slow waves that didn't make sense. I counted in my head. 30 seconds. That's what Randall said. 30 seconds and he'd be back. I got to 45. Then something hit the door. Hard. I jumped back. Freddy spun and put a hand on his belt. Randall was on the other side of the glass, his face pressed against it, his hands flat on the window, fingers spread wide. He was mouthing something. I couldn't hear it through the door, but I could see his mouth moving, repeating the same word. Please. I moved closer. That's when I saw his face. Blisters, swollen and wet. They covered his cheeks, his forehead, the bridge of his nose. Some of them had already burst. Clear fluid ran down his skin and mixed with something darker near his hairline. His hands were worse. The skin on his palms looked cooked, red and white and peeling at the edges. The front of his uniform was wrong, too. The fabric looked melted in places, darkened and puckered, like someone had hit him with a blowtorch or acid. He slammed his hands against the glass again. His mouth kept moving. Please, please, please. I looked at the crash bar. Don't, Freddy said. We can't just leave him out there. You open that door, the fog comes in. He's right there. I know. Randall's eyes found mine. I'd worked with him for 2 years, seen him every shift. He was the guy who always finished his rotation early, who kept his cart stocked and his supplies organized, who talked about his kids every chance he got. He was still looking at me. I put my hand on the crash bar. Miles, Freddy said. Warning. I didn't push it. I just kept my hand there, trying to think, trying to figure out if there was a way to open the door without letting the fog flood in. If I could crack it just enough. If Randall could slip through fast enough. I didn't get the chance to decide. Something grabbed Randall from behind. I didn't see what it was, just the movement. Randall jerked backward, hard. His hands slid across the glass and his fingers clawed for grip and found nothing. He went down. No, not down. Back. He was pulled, fast enough that his shoes scraped across the pavement. I heard it through the door. A sharp skidding sound. His hands came back up, fingers splayed, nails scratching against the glass, scraping, dragging. Then he screamed. I heard that too, muffled but clear, high and desperate and wrong. It cut off. Not gradually, just stopped, mid-sound. The wet tearing that followed was worse. I didn't move. I don't think I breathed. Something hit the door, heavy. It slid down the glass slow, left a trail, dark and greasy and smeared. An arm. Just an arm. It rolled when it hit the ground and I saw the custodial uniform sleeve. The name Patch. Randall. The fog pressed closer, thicker now. I couldn't see anything past the window except yellow and that dark smear running down the glass. Randall didn't come back. Freddy moved fast. He turned from the door and started walking toward the cluster of people still standing by the windows. His hands up, voice loud and clear. Step back from the glass. Now. A few people turned to look at him but didn't move. One guy in a polo shirt kept filming the fog on his phone. I said step back. Freddy's tone went harder. Away from the windows. Away from all exterior doors. Move to the center of the concourse. A woman with a rolling suitcase started to argue. We're just... Now. She shut her mouth and pulled her suitcase back a few steps. The guy with the phone lowered it slowly, still staring at the yellow fog pressed against the glass. Freddy kept moving down the line, herding people back like he was working crowd control at a concert. Most of them listened. A couple dragged their feet, but they moved. I stayed near the employee door. My hand was still tingling from where I'd touched the crash bar. I hadn't pushed it. I kept telling myself that. I hadn't opened the door, but I'd thought about it long enough that it felt wrong, like the decision had stretched out too far and I'd missed the moment where it mattered. Gabriella appeared next to me. I didn't hear her walk up. She was breathing hard and her toolkit wasn't on her shoulder anymore. "What happened?" she asked. I looked at her. "You left. I came back. I got to the parking garage and saw the fog rolling in from the south access road." She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "It's not normal smoke. It's not combustion. I think it's a chemical leak from one of the fuel depots or maybe an industrial accident off-site. The way it's moving, low to the ground, that density, it's heavier than air. Probably chlorine or something similar. I wanted that to be right. It fit the kind of thing we trained for. Hazmat incident, chemical exposure. There were procedures for that. Containment, ventilation cuts, emergency shutdown of HVAC to prevent circulation. I'd done the online modules twice a year since I started working here. But I kept seeing Randall's face against the glass, the blisters, the way his skin had looked cooked in some places and melted in others. And I kept seeing the thing that grabbed him, the shadow, the shape. "Yeah," I said. "Chemical leak? That makes sense." Gabriella nodded, already pulling out her phone. "We need to get facilities to shut down the air handlers. If it gets into the duct system..." "Right." I walked past her to the window, not the door where Randall had been. A different window, 10 feet down, where the glass was still clear and I could see the tarmac. The yellow fog sat low, really low. It didn't rise or swirl the way smoke does when it hits obstacles. It just pooled. Like someone had poured something heavy across the ground and it was spreading outward in a slow, deliberate layer. I watched it move past a baggage cart. The fog didn't curl around the wheels, it didn't drift up the sides. It just kept going, flat and even, maybe a foot high at most, sliding under the cart and continuing on the other side without breaking its line. That wasn't right. Smoke moves. It catches air currents. It rises when it's warm, sinks when it's cold, but it doesn't stay level like water. This thing moved like it had weight, like it was following the terrain. I could see it filling the shallow drainage channels that ran along the taxiway. Thicker there, deeper. And when it reached the slight incline near the service road, it slowed. Not stopped, just slowed. Like it was pooling until it built up enough volume to keep spreading uphill. Gabriella came up beside me again. "We should move away from the glass." "Look at it," I said. She looked. Her face changed, just a little. The certainty went out of her eyes. "It's following the grade," I said. "It's staying low. Heavy vapor, that's consistent with... It's not drifting." She didn't answer right away. We both stood there watching the fog advance across the ramp in a slow, even line. No eddies, no variation. Just forward movement, pooling in the low spots, climbing the rises when it had enough mass behind it. "Okay," Gabriella said quietly. "That's weird." Freddie came back toward us. He'd cleared most of the crowd away from the windows. People were clustered in the center of the concourse now, some sitting on the floor, others standing in small groups talking or looking at their phones. A couple gate agents were still at their podiums, one on the phone and one typing something on her computer with her shoulders hunched forward. "We need to move," Freddie said. "Dispatch wants all ground-level personnel to evacuate to upper floors." I turned away from the window. "Upper floors where?" "Mezzanine level. Hotel bridge, anywhere above the ramp." That made sense if the fog was staying low. Get higher. Get away from the exterior doors and the loading zones and the places where the stuff could seep in through gaps or vents. I looked at Gabriella. She nodded. "Stairwells this way," I said. We moved. I led because I knew the layout better than Freddie and Gabriella had been gone when the lockdown started, so she'd missed the initial announcements. We passed gate B42, B40, B38. My boots squeaked on the tile. Freddie's radio crackled twice, but nobody spoke through it. The west stairwell door was propped open with a doorstop someone had kicked into place. Probably a passenger trying to keep options open. I pulled the doorstop free and let the door swing shut behind us as we entered. The stairwell was dimmer than the concourse. Freddy had been right about that. The overhead lights were those long fluorescent panels, and 2 of them were out on this landing, leaving just the emergency exit signs to fill in the gaps with their dull red glow. I started up. Gabriella followed, then Freddy behind her. Our footsteps echoed in the narrow space, uneven and loud. "How high does this go?" Gabriella asked. "Mezzanine's 1 flight up," I said. "Then there's the bridge to the west end. The hotel?" "Yeah." Freddy's radio crackled again. This time a voice came through. "Dispatch." A woman's voice, calm and measured. "All units, be advised. Fog is confirmed as hazardous material. Do not approach exterior zones. Proceed to lower-level staging areas for coordinated evacuation." Freddy slowed on the stairs. I heard his boot scuff the concrete. "Say again," he said into the radio. "You want us lower?" There was a pause. Then the voice came back. Same calm tone. Same measured pace. But something about it felt off. Like she was reading from a script and concentrating too hard on getting the words right. "Affirmative. All personnel should move to subsurface tram stations and loading docks for transport evacuation. Repeat, move to lower levels." I stopped climbing, turned around. Freddy was standing 2 steps below Gabriella with the radio in his hand and his face tight. "That doesn't make sense," Gabriella said. "The fog's on the ground. Why would they want us to go down?" Freddy pressed the talk button. "Dispatch, this is Herman. Fog is ground level and rising. Requesting clarification on lower level staging." Another pause, longer this time. "Proceed to subsurface loading docks. Evacuation transport is waiting." The cadence was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on exactly how, but the rhythm of her words didn't match the way dispatch usually talked. Too even. No variation. Like someone had smoothed out all the natural pauses and corrections that happen when a person is actually thinking while they speak. "Freddy," I said. He looked up at me. "We're not going down. Miles, we're going up to the bridge." Gabriella nodded immediately. Freddy hesitated, his hand still on the radio. "They said evacuation transport," he said. "They also said the fog is hazardous and ground level," I said. "So why would they want us underground where there's no windows, no visibility, and every access tunnel opens directly onto the ramp?" Freddy's jaw worked. He looked at the radio, then he clipped it back onto his belt. "Okay," he said. "We go up." We kept climbing. The air changed halfway across the bridge. I noticed it in my lungs first, that shift from recycled terminal air to something softer, a little warmer. Carpet smell, stale coffee. That specific hotel lobby staleness that always reminded me of business trips I'd never actually taken. I looked down through the glass floor panels under my boots. The fog was thinner here. Not gone, just less. A faint haze along the windows instead of that dense yellow wall we'd been watching spread across the ramp. It looked almost normal, almost like morning mist that would burn off by 8. I took that as improvement. Probably shouldn't have. Gabriella grabbed my sleeve hard enough that I felt her fingers through the fabric. I stopped walking and turned. She was staring at my hand, the one holding the flashlight. Her face had that tight look people get when they're trying to decide if they're actually seeing something or just tired. "Your nails," she said. I lifted my hand and angled it toward the emergency lighting running along the bridge ceiling. My nails looked how they always looked, needed trimming. Grime packed under them from checking the actuator housing back at gate B28, which felt like 6 hours ago, but was probably closer to 40 minutes. Black grease. Hydraulic fluid residue, the usual. Then the grime moved. Not a lot. Just enough that I noticed the edges of it shifting, aligning into something that wasn't random. Tiny printed lines, like text. Like someone had written something microscopic under my nails and the dirt was rearranging itself to show it. I blinked. It stopped. Just grime again. Just normal end-of-shift dirt that I should have washed off before leaving Concourse B. Gabriella was still staring. "You saw that." "Saw what?" "Don't." Her voice came out flat. "I just watched it happen." I closed my hand into a fist and kept walking. Fluorescent glare makes everything look weird. She didn't argue, didn't agree either, just followed. I didn't tell her the lines had looked like maintenance codes, the same format we used on work orders. I didn't tell her I'd recognized the sequence before it stopped. And I definitely didn't tell her the last 2 digits matched the gate number where Randall had been doing his trash rotation. I just kept moving forward and decided I wasn't looking at my hands again unless I had to. Midway across the bridge, the glass turned into a mirror. That's not how glass works. I know that. I've replaced enough window seals and checked enough pressure ratings to understand that transparent surfaces don't just suddenly become reflective unless the light changes or something coats them from the other side. But that's what happened. 1 second I was looking through the bridge windows at the terminal on the other side, the Weston logo visible in dull red neon, and the next second I was looking at myself. Perfect reflection, clearer than any bathroom mirror. I could see the stubble on my jaw and the smudge of grease on my collar and the way my hair stuck up a little on the left for pulling off my cap earlier. And I could see my father standing behind me. Phoenix Chang. 5'10", stocky build, graying hair combed back the way he always wore it when he worked operations. He had on his old airport badge, the one with the blue stripe that meant contractor access, clipped to a shirt I remembered from when I was maybe 12, dated, tucked in. The kind of business casual that hadn't been in style for 20 years. He wasn't actually there. I knew that. My father died 4 years ago from a stroke in his kitchen on a Tuesday morning while making toast. I'd gotten the call at work. I'd gone to the house. I'd handled everything the way you're supposed to. But his reflection stood right behind mine in the glass, clear and solid and close enough that I should have felt his breath on my neck. His mouth moved. I couldn't hear anything. The bridge was quiet except for Gabriella's boots behind me and Freddie's radio crackling static every few seconds. But I could see my father's lips forming words in the reflection, slow and careful. The way he used to talk when he was explaining a procedure or telling me how to fix something I'd broken. I slowed down. Didn't mean to. My boots just stopped moving as fast. I was still walking, but barely, and my eyes stayed locked on the glass because I wanted to know what he was saying. It looked important. It looked like the kind of thing he'd pull me aside to explain during a shift. That calm, authoritative tone that meant he was about to save me from making a stupid mistake. I almost stopped completely. Almost turned around to face him. Almost asked what he needed me to do. Then Freddie grabbed my shoulder and pulled me forward hard enough that I stumbled. I blinked. The glass was just glass again. Transparent. I could see through it to the Weston lobby on the other side, dim but normal, with chairs and a front desk and potted plants that probably needed watering. No reflection. No father. Freddie was staring at me with his hand still on my shoulder and his face doing that thing cops do when they're deciding whether to escalate. You froze. I'm fine. You stopped moving. I'm fine, I said again. Gabriella stepped up beside us. What happened? Nothing happened. I shrugged off Freddie's hand and kept walking. My chest felt tight and my hands were shaking a little, but I kept them down by my sides where nobody would notice. Let's just get to the lobby. Freddie didn't let it go. You saw something. Doesn't matter. If it made you stop, it doesn't matter, I said louder than I meant to. Whatever this thing is, it's messing with perception. We already know that. Dispatch sounded wrong. The fog moves wrong. Now the glass looks wrong. We just need to keep moving and not trust anything we see until we're somewhere with clean air and normal lighting. Gabriella looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Freddie took longer, but eventually did the same. I didn't tell them what I'd seen. Didn't seem useful. Didn't seem like the kind of thing that would help us get out. and I didn't want to explain that the advice my father's reflection had been giving me, the procedure he'd been trying to walk me through, was telling me to go back down to the lower level, back to the ramp, back to where Randall had died. That part I kept to myself. We reached the Westin lobby at exactly 5:43. I checked my phone out of habit. Still had signal, battery at 62%, no new messages. The lobby had power. Lights on. Heating system running, I could hear the vents. Everything looked stable and normal and completely wrong. There was nobody there. Not at the front desk. Not in the seating area. Not coming out of the elevator bay or the hallway that probably led to conference rooms in the restaurant. Just empty. Just furniture and that generic hotel smell of cleaning solution and air freshener. The chairs were arranged facing the windows, all of them. Every single chair in the seating area, maybe 20 total, turned to point at the glass that looked out toward the terminal and the bridge we just crossed. Nobody sits like that. People scatter chairs. They move them into clusters or pull them aside or leave them at angles. But these were lined up, uniform, like someone had taken the time to position each one exactly. I walked past the front desk and looked at the computer monitor. Screen was on. Login page. Normal Westin interface. I'd seen it before when I'd done work orders in the hotel last year. Nothing unusual except that nobody was logged in and there was no sign anyone had been working recently. No coffee cup, no papers, no jacket hung over the chair. Gabriella moved toward the windows. Freddie stayed near the entrance we'd come through, hand on his radio. I turned around to look back at the bridge. It was gone. Not the structure. The structure was still there. I could see the metal frame and the support cables. But the walkway itself, the glass tunnel we'd just walked through, was buried under yellow fog so thick I couldn't see more than 2 feet into it. It had been clear when we crossed. Hazy, but clear enough to see the whole length. Now it was a wall. Solid yellow, pressed right up against the lobby entrance like it was waiting. "Miles," Gabriella said. I turned. She was pointing at the window. Outside, the fog had risen, not ground level anymore. It was maybe 3 feet high now, covering the lower half of the terminal windows across from us, still moving in that slow, wrong way that didn't match any weather pattern I'd ever seen. And it was getting higher. I walked past the arranged chairs and headed toward the side exit near the conference hallway. The door had a crash bar and a small rectangular window at eye level. Through the glass, I could see the exterior landing and the top of a metal staircase that led down to ground level on the hotel's east side. Yellow fog covered the bottom half of the window, but the top was still clear. Gabriella followed me. Freddie stayed near the front desk with his radio in hand, not talking into it, just holding it. I put my hand on the crash bar and pushed. The door opened maybe 2 inches before it stopped, just stopped cold. I pushed harder and felt resistance on the other side. Something solid pressing back. Not wind, not pressure. Something heavy. I let off and the door stayed where it was, held open by whatever was on the other side. Through the gap, I heard a faint scraping sound, rhythmic. Metal on concrete, maybe, or something being dragged across the landing in short pulls. Gabriella leaned close to the gap and listened. Her face went tight. I pulled the door shut and stepped back. The crash bar clicked into place. "What was that?" Gabriella asked. "Don't know." Freddie walked over. "We need to go back." I looked at him. "Back to the terminal," he said. "Find a room we can seal. Operations office, break room, something with one entry point. Barricade it and wait this out." Gabriella shook her head. "Hotel rooms are better. Thicker walls, real doors with deadbolts. We go upstairs. Pick a room on an upper floor, lock ourselves in." Freddie gestured at the windows. "And if that fog fills the whole building, we're trapped in a box." "We're already trapped," Gabriella said. I turned away from both of them and walked toward the back hallway. past the conference rooms, past the restaurant entrance with its dark interior and stacked chairs visible through the glass door. At the end of the hall, there was a service door marked "Staff Only" in faded letters. I'd been down here before. Last year, maybe October. Work order for a tripped circuit that killed power to half the kitchen. The hotel maintenance guy had walked me through the layout. Service stairs that went down 2 levels to the loading area and connected to a tunnel. The tunnel ran under the access road and linked back to the airport's utility corridors near Concourse A. Interior access. No windows, no exterior doors until you were deep inside the terminal infrastructure. Gabriella caught up. "Where are you going?" "Down." "Down where?" "Utility tunnel. Connects to the airport maintenance quarters." "I know the layout." Freddie arrived behind her. "Dispatch said to go to subsurface levels." "Dispatch also told us the fog was a chemical leak," I said. Freddie didn't respond to that. I opened the service door. The stairwell behind it was concrete with metal railings bolted to the walls. Green emergency lights ran along the ceiling in a strip, one every 10 feet or so, casting everything in that flat chemical glow that made shadows look wrong. The air smelled different. Metallic, like licking a battery. I'd tasted that before, years back, when a transformer blew in the electrical vault near baggage claim. This was similar, but not quite the same. I started down. My boots hit each step with a dull echo. Gabriella followed without saying anything. Freddie came last and pulled the door shut behind him. The stairwell went straight down for one flight, then turned at a landing and continued. The temperature dropped fast. By the second landing, my breath was visible in the green light, little puffs that hung in the air longer than they should have. I kept my hand on the railing. The metal was cold enough to sting my palm. That's when I heard it, a sweeping sound, steady and rhythmic, like something being dragged across tile. A mop, maybe, or a brush. It came from below us, echoing up the stairwell in a way that made it hard to pinpoint. I stopped on the landing. The sound stopped. Gabriella bumped into my back. "What?" I didn't answer. I started walking again, slower this time, and the sweeping sound resumed. Same rhythm, same interval, matching my pace exactly. "You hear that?" Gabriella whispered. "Yeah." Freddie moved up beside me on the narrow landing. His hand was on his belt near his gun, but he hadn't drawn it. "What is that?" "Don't know, but I did know. Or I thought I did. The sound was too familiar, that specific scrape and drag. I'd heard it 100 times walking through the concourse during night shifts. Randall's cart, the one with the squeaky wheel I'd made a mental note to check. The wheel that had something sticky on it, something that made it catch and drag every few rotations. I moved faster, down the next flight. The sound kept pace. When I hit the next landing and turned, it turned with me. Gabriella's breathing was loud behind me. Freddie's radio crackled once, but no voice came through. The stairwell ended at a heavy door with a push bar and a small wired glass window. Beyond it, I could see a concrete corridor lit by the same green emergency strips. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Cable trays bolted to the walls. Everything looked right. Everything looked like the utility access I remembered from that work order last year. I pushed the door open and stepped through. The corridor stretched in both directions. Left went back toward the terminal. Right went deeper under the hotel. The air tasted worse here. That metallic bite was sharper, almost sour, and it made the back of my throat itch the same way the fog had when Randall opened the employee door. Freddie grabbed the door and forced it wider, holding it open while Gabriella came through. Then he let it swing shut, and it locked with a heavy clunk. The sweeping sound was gone. I pulled out my phone and opened the facility maps I kept in my files. The screen lit up my face in the green dimness, and I had to squint to read the layout. We were in the hotel service level, approximately 30 feet below ground. The tunnel to the airport was supposed to be 200 feet to the left. access through a junction room marked HV2 on the map. I looked left. The corridor ran straight with no visible junction. I looked right. Same thing. Gabriella stepped beside me and looked at my phone. Where's the tunnel? Should be that way. I pointed left. I don't see a door. It's there, just farther down. Freddy walked a few feet to the right and stopped. He was looking at something on the wall. I followed his line of sight and saw a yellow painted line running along the concrete about waist high. Safety marking, standard in utility corridors to indicate clearance zones or designated pathways. The line ran straight for about 20 feet, then bent sharply and disappeared into a side passage I hadn't noticed before. I looked back at my phone. The map didn't show a side passage here. Just straight corridor running east-west, with the junction room clearly marked 200 feet to the left. Gabriella walked toward the passage and stopped at the edge. There's a hum. I closed my phone and moved next to her. She was right. A low electrical hum came from inside the passage. Steady. The kind of sound you get from a transformer room or a live distribution panel. 60-cycle hum. I'd heard it 1,000 times. The passage itself was dark. The green emergency lights didn't extend into it, and I couldn't see more than a few feet inside. That's not on the map, I said. So, Gabriella looked at me. If there's power, there might be people. Someone running systems. Freddy came up behind us. Or it's another way out. I looked at the passage, then back at the corridor to the left where the tunnel was supposed to be. The hum was steady, consistent. It sounded exactly like an electrical room with active circuits. And if there was an electrical room, there'd be a control panel. Maybe a phone line. Maybe someone from engineering still running diagnosment. I pulled the flashlight off my belt and clicked it on. The beam cut into the passage and lit up more concrete walls, more pipes, another 20 feet of corridor before it curved out of sight. The yellow safety line continued along the wall, perfectly painted, leading deeper in. We go this way, I said. Gabriella nodded immediately. Freddy hesitated. You sure? No. I stepped into the passage anyway. The hum got louder, the air got colder, and somewhere behind us, faint and distant, the sweeping sound started again. I opened the door to the electrical closet. The room stretched wrong. I mean, it just kept going. Breaker cabinets lined both walls, and they receded into the distance way farther than the building could possibly contain. The hotel was maybe 200 feet wide. This room went at least 3 times that, maybe more. Hard to tell because the green emergency lights faded into darkness at the far end, and I couldn't see where the room actually stopped. The mechanical hum I'd heard through the door was louder inside, deeper. It didn't sound like transformers anymore. It sounded closer to singing, not words. Just a low, sustained note that vibrated in my chest and made my teeth ache. Gabriella stepped in behind me and stopped. What the hell? Freddy came through last and pulled the door shut out of habit. The sound of it closing echoed down the impossible length of the room and came back wrong. Too many echoes. Too long. I walked forward a few steps. The floor was concrete. Normal. The cabinets looked standard. Gray metal with warning labels and breaker numbers stenciled in white. But there were too many of them, and they kept going, and the perspective didn't make sense. When I looked at the far end, it felt like looking down a tunnel that curved even though the walls appeared straight. Miles, Gabriella's voice was tight. This isn't right. I know. We should leave. Probably, but the tunnel to the airport was supposed to connect through this room. That's what the map showed. HV2. High voltage room 2. I'd been in HV1 last year, and it was a normal-sized electrical closet with 6 breaker panels and a utility sink. This was the same layout. Same hotel. Should have been the same size. I walked farther in. My boots echoed on concrete. The hum got louder, and the singing quality became clearer. It sounded almost harmonic, like someone holding a note in a choir, but with no breath behind it. Just sustained forever. Freddy moved up beside me with his hand on his gun. Chang, we're leaving. Hang on. I pulled out my phone and opened the facility map again. The screen showed HV2 as a small rectangular room approximately 20 by 30 feet with a tunnel access on the west wall. I looked up. The west wall was on my left. It was lined with breaker cabinets and stretched at least 200 feet into the dark. No door, no tunnel access, just cabinets. I turned and looked at the east wall. Same thing, cabinets going forever. Gabriella walked past me toward the middle of the room. She stopped and turned in a slow circle. Where's the tunnel? Should be here. Well, it's not. I looked at the map again. The blue dot showing my location sat directly inside HV2, right where I was standing. The tunnel entrance was marked 10 feet to my left. I walked over to where the map said the door should be. Nothing. Just another breaker cabinet identical to all the others. I reached out and touched the metal, cold, real. The cabinet had a label reading panel 14C with voltage warnings below it. Freddy's radio crackled. He pulled it off his belt and held it up. Static hissed through the speaker. No voice. He clipped it back and looked at me. We're going. The singing hum shifted. It got quieter for a second. Then it came back stronger and I realized it wasn't just one note anymore. It was layered, multiple tones overlapping in a way that sounded deliberate, structured. Not random interference or transformer noise. Machinery doesn't sing. I turned toward the door we'd come through. It was still there, maybe 30 feet behind us. Green emergency light above it. Exit sign glowing. Normal. Yeah, I said. Let's go. I started walking back and Gabriella fell in beside me. Freddy stayed close. The door didn't get closer. We walked maybe 20 steps and it still looked 30 feet away. I stopped. Gabriella noticed immediately and stopped too. Miles? I looked at the floor. Concrete. Smooth. No cracks. I looked at the cabinets on either side. They were identical. Same gray metal, same labels. Panel 14C on the left, panel 14C on the right. Both of them, same number. I turned and looked behind us. The room stretched into darkness. Same as before. I turned back toward the door, still 30 feet away. Freddy moved past me and walked straight toward the exit. He covered the distance fast, got within 10 feet, 5. Then he was walking in place, and the door stayed exactly the same distance ahead of him. He stopped and turned around. It's not moving. I know. He walked back to us, took maybe 6 steps. What is this? I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone again and called airport operations. That was the standard protocol. If something went wrong in the utility corridors, you called ops, and they coordinated response. The phone rang twice. Someone picked up. Operations. Female voice. Calm. Measured. The same cadence I'd heard from dispatch on Freddy's radio earlier when they told us to go to subsurface levels. I kept my voice steady. This is Miles Chang, facilities. I'm in the hotel service level, room HV2. We need assistance. Pause. Too long. Miles Chang, facilities supervisor. Concourse B crew. Yeah, you're in the right place. I looked at the endless room. The breaker cabinets receding into darkness. The singing hum that was getting louder again. No, I'm not. You are. You should stay there. It's quiet, safe, better than outside. The phrasing was too careful, too smooth. Same rhythm as before. Encouraging without actually saying anything useful. Designed to sound helpful while keeping you in place. I recognized it now. Who is this? Operations. What's your name? Pause. You should stay, except the quiet. It's easier. I hung up. Gabriella was staring at me. What did they say? Doesn't matter. Freddy's radio crackled again. This time a voice came through. Same female voice, same measured tone. All personnel remain in current positions. Shelter in place. Assistance is en route. Freddy looked at his radio, looked at me. That's dispatch. No, it's not. Miles. It's the same voice I just talked to, same phrasing. It's trying to keep us here. Gabriella backed up a step. She turned and looked down the length of the room. Her face changed, went from tense to confused, to something worse. Recognition, maybe. Or hope. She started walking toward the far end. Gabriella. She didn't stop. She walked faster. Her boots echoed and the sound bounced wrong off the walls and came back distorted. Freddy moved after her. Schmidt, stop. She kept going. I ran and caught up and grabbed her arm. She pulled away. Let go. Where are you going? She pointed down the room toward the darkness. I can see it. See what? My apartment in Aurora. It's right there. I can see my door. The number, 307. I looked where she was pointing. I saw breaker cabinets. Darkness. Nothing else. It's not there. It is. I can see it. If I just get there, I can go home. I can leave. She pulled harder and I held on. Freddy grabbed her other arm. She twisted and tried to shake us both off. Let go. I'm going home. The singing hum got louder, deeper. It filled the whole room now, and I could feel it vibrating through the floor into my boots and up through my legs. The air smelled wrong, scorched, like burnt hair. One of the breaker cabinets down the room swung open on its own. The door moved slow, deliberate, no wind, no mechanism I could see. It just opened and the metal hinges didn't creak. They scraped, long and rhythmic. Something pale moved inside the cabinet. A hand reached out. Long fingers, pale skin, joints bending at angles that didn't match human anatomy. The wrist bent backward. The elbow joint curved the wrong direction. The hand kept reaching and the arm stretched farther than any arm should, and the scraping sound matched its movement. Deliberate, purposeful. I let go of Gabriella and stepped back. Freddy saw it too. He pulled Gabriella behind him and his hand went to his gun, but he didn't draw. The hand kept reaching. The fingers spread wide and they were too long. Each one maybe 8 inches. The nails were dark, pointed. They scraped against the inside of the cabinet door as the hand emerged and the sound made my teeth hurt. I looked around. Emergency disconnect switches were standard in electrical rooms, required by code, usually near the entrance. I turned and scanned the wall by the door we'd come through. There, red handle in a metal box bolted to the wall at shoulder height. I ran. The singing hum stuttered, dropped in pitch, then came back higher and louder, and it didn't sound like singing anymore. It sounded like screaming, but sustained and controlled. I reached the disconnect box and flipped the cover open. The handle was down. I grabbed it and threw it up, hard. The lights dimmed. The hum cut out for half a second. Total silence. Then it came back as a hiss, sharp, angry. The green emergency lights flickered and the singing collapsed into something that sounded like static but with rhythm underneath. Patterns, almost like words, but not quite. I turned around. The hand had jerked forward. It stretched even farther now. The arm was impossibly long and thin, and it didn't have skin anymore. Just pale surface that looked smooth and unbroken. No veins, no texture. The hand reached toward Gabriella and Freddy, and the fingers spread wider. Gabriella screamed. She staggered backward like she'd been pushed. Her face went white. Freddy pulled his gun and fired. The sound was massive in the enclosed space. 3 shots, 4. I lost count. The muzzle flash lit up the whole room in bursts, and I saw the breaker cabinets flicker between real and something else. Shadows that didn't match the light, walls that bent. The hand recoiled, pulled back into the cabinet. The fingers curled and the arm retracted and the cabinet door swung shut. Silence, just ringing in my ears from the gunshots. Freddy kept his gun raised. Gabriella was on the floor, breathing hard. I ran over and grabbed her arm and pulled her up. She didn't resist. Her eyes were unfocused. "We're leaving." Freddy backed toward us without lowering his gun. Door's still 30 feet away. I looked. He was right. The exit hadn't moved. Yellow haze started creeping along the floor from the far end of the room, thin at first, then thicker. It moved slow and deliberate, and it followed the same pattern I'd seen on the ramp. Heavy, low, unnatural. I grabbed Gabriella and pulled her toward the door. Freddy came with us. We ran. The door stayed ahead, always the same distance. I didn't stop. I just kept running and pulled Gabriella with me, and after maybe 20 steps, the perspective snapped. The door was right in front of us. I hit the crash bar and shoved it open, and we fell through into the corridor. Freddy came last and turned and slammed the door shut. There was no lock, no way to secure it. "We need to block it." I looked around. The corridor had pipes along the ceiling and cable trays bolted to the walls. A metal utility cart sat against the wall 10 feet down. I ran and grabbed it and wheeled it back. Freddy helped me jam it under the door handle. It wouldn't hold long, but it was something. Yellow haze started seeping under the door, thin tendrils creeping across the concrete floor. "Go!" We ran down the corridor toward the terminal, left at the first junction, right at the second. I didn't check the map. I just followed the green emergency lights and kept moving. Gabriella ran beside me. Her breathing was ragged, but she kept pace. Freddy stayed behind us, watching our backs. The corridor opened into a wider space. Train platform. I recognized it from the layout. Subsurface tram that connected all the concourses. The platform was empty. No people. No sounds except our boots on concrete. The tracks disappeared into a tunnel on the left. Yellow fog filled the tunnel mouth completely. Thick. Solid. No visibility. I stopped at the platform edge and looked down. The tracks were buried under fog. Couldn't see them at all. Gabriella grabbed my arm. "Miles?" I heard it too. A low rumble from the tunnel. Getting louder. The tram was coming. It emerged from the fog in total silence. No wheel noise, no mechanical hum. Just the shape of it sliding forward and stopping perfectly aligned with the platform. The doors opened, automatic, smooth. The inside was lit. Bright fluorescent panels, empty seats, clean floor. The display above the doors showed destinations. Every stop listed the same word. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Repeating down the whole list. Freddy raised his gun toward the open doors. "We're not getting on that." No. I looked around the platform. Service ladder bolted to the wall on the far side. Metal rungs going straight up into darkness. Maintenance access to the upper levels. I'd used them before during work on the tram system. I pointed. "There." We ran. The tram doors stayed open behind us. I reached the ladder first and started climbing. The metal was cold and my hands were shaking, but I kept going. Gabriella came after me. Freddy climbed last. The ladder went up maybe 40 feet. My arms burned. I didn't stop. At the top was a hatch with a manual release. I turned the handle and pushed. The hatch swung open, and I pulled myself through into a narrow catwalk. Yepsen Terminal main atrium. I recognized it immediately. The catwalk ran along the structural supports under the fabric roof, high above the main floor, maybe 80 feet up. I'd been up here twice before for light fixture maintenance on the support trusses. I helped Gabriella through the hatch. Freddy came last and pulled it shut behind him. There was a locking mechanism. He turned it until it clicked. We sat on the catwalk with our backs against the support beam. Below us, the terminal stretched huge and dark. Emergency lights provided just enough glow to see shapes. Ticket counters, security checkpoints, baggage claim carousels, all empty. Yellow fog pulsed across the main floor. It moved in waves, advancing, receding, never quite reaching the walls, never quite dispersing, just moving in patterns that didn't make sense. Gabriella was shaking. I took off my jacket and put it around her shoulders. She didn't say anything. Freddie checked his gun, ejected the magazine, counted rounds, reloaded, clipped it back on his belt. We waited. The fog moved below us for hours. I watched it through the metal grating of the catwalk. Sometimes it formed shapes, almost recognizable. Faces, maybe, or hands. Then it would dissolve and reform somewhere else. My phone said 11:47 p.m., then 1:15 a.m., then 3:32 a.m. I didn't sleep. Neither did Gabriella or Freddie. We just sat and watched and waited. Around 5 a.m., the fog started thinning. Slow at first, then faster. By 5:30, I could see the floor below. Tile. Clean. Normal. At 6:15, the runway lights came back on outside the terminal windows. I saw them through the fabric roof panels. Steady white and green. Regular patterns. Real. I stood up and looked down at the main floor. The fog was gone. Completely. Like it had never been there. But the terminal wasn't empty anymore. Luggage carts were scattered everywhere. Tipped over. Contents spilled across the tile. Suitcases torn open. Clothes and personal items spread in trails leading toward the exits. Some of the security checkpoint doors were forced open. Bent frames, broken glass. Dark stains marked the floor near the escalators. Big ones. Wet-looking under the emergency lights. The kind that suggested serious injury. Hurried removal. I counted 5, maybe 6. Hard to tell where one ended and another began. Gabriella stood beside me and looked down. She didn't say anything. Neither did Freddie. I pulled out my phone and tried calling ops again. This time it rang through to a normal dispatcher. Male voice. Tired but professional. He confirmed the airport was in controlled lockdown. Emergency services were on site. Hazmat teams clearing levels. We should stay where we were and wait for escort. I hung up and sat back down. Randall was gone. I knew that now. Accepted it. He'd gone outside for his car and something took him. I'd seen it happen through the glass, watched him get pulled backward into the fog. Couldn't do anything. Wouldn't have changed it if I'd opened the door. Would have just let more people die. That part still sat heavy, but I could carry it. The airport reopened 4 days later. Controlled access, tightened security procedures. No public statement about what happened, just vague references to hazardous material incident and ongoing investigation. I went back to work the following Monday. Same shift, same routes, same work orders. But I kept hearing that voice. The calm, measured dispatcher tone that told us to go to subsurface levels, to stay in place, to accept the quiet. I heard it sometimes in the PA announcements, just for a second. A phrase that sounded too smooth, too careful. Every time I heard it, I stopped what I was doing and listened hard. Waited to see if it would continue, if it would try to guide people somewhere they shouldn't go. And when I heard it, I marked my location and I went the other direction. Every time.